China has urged for prudence following what the US military called a successful interception of a mock intercontinental ballistic missile on Tuesday. Beijing's Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hua Chunying told reporters on Wednesday that China has a clear and consistent stance on missile defense. She called for all relevant parties to act with caution so there are no adverse impacts on regional and global security and stability.
Hatches opened, a blast of flame, and the Caliber cruise missiles arced through the eastern Mediterranean's blue skies. The beginning of their journey, the Russians say, to wreak destruction on ISIL targets near Palmyra. Such sophisticated weaponry is expensive and used rarely in Syria, generally when Russia has a point to prove to the West.
Well, they want to show that they have some weapons which can strike from long distances, from the Navy vessels, from their submarines. And that is a kind of a deterrent that Russia can use. You know, okay, we cannot outspend you, we cannot defeat you at the battleground, but we have something that can punish you if you attack us.
It's notable Russia's cruise missiles were launched a day after the US displayed missile capabilities of its own. Now that US test is widely believed to be a response to North Korea's recent missile launches. But Moscow has long voiced objections to the global positioning of US missile defense systems. The US, Turkey and Israel were warned in advance about Russia's cruise missile strikes. That served the dual purpose of keeping information channels with the region's power brokers open and reminding them Russia has sophisticated missile weaponry it's willing to use unilaterally.
Russia has built a hypersonic missile capable of destroying an aircraft carrier with a single impact, it has been reported. Kremlin chiefs claim to have constructed a Zircon cruise missile which travels between 3,800 mph and 4,600 mph, 5 to 6 times the speed of sound. Experts warned the unstoppable projectiles could spell disaster for the Navy's new £6.2 billion aircraft carriers, the HMS Queen Elizabeth and HMS Prince of Wales.
Well, meanwhile, in an interview with a French newspaper, President Putin said that it is those who lost elections in the US who are continuing to play the anti-Russia card.
The US president is steering a traditional US policy. Of course, we remember that during his election campaign, and also after he was elected and assumed office, President Trump spoke about his intention to normalize the relationship with Russia, and said that it cannot be any worse. We remember this. However, we also see and realize that the political situation in the United States is influenced by those who have lost the elections but refuse to accept their defeat, and who continue to use the anti-Russia card and various allegations most actively in the political infighting.
Putin went on to say that it's not just Trump who said that he wants to improve relations with Russia. In fact, NATO officials have adopted a similar rhetoric. However, he pointed out there seems to be an inner contradiction of this NATO policy of, on one hand, saying that they want to improve relations with Moscow, but on the other, increasing their military spending. He described this as a short-sighted policy for NATO officials to invent a fictional threat from Russia instead of tackling this common security threat of terrorism.
Russia is expelling 2 Estonian diplomats. They have been told they have to leave within 5 days.
As a response to Estonia expelling 2 Russian diplomats last week from the city of Narva. Now, Estonia did this without any explanation. The initial version was that supposedly the Russians were sent out because of some espionage, but that was later debunked. And today, the Russian Foreign Ministry released a statement condemning this move. Let's take a listen.
The destructive path of Estonia's authorities will affect bilateral ties with Russia. Tallinn is responsible for consequences.
Now, we've seen a similar story unfold with Moldova recently too, haven't we?
Oh, yes. Came quite a bit of a surprise from Moldova, with 5 Russian diplomats getting on the booted list. And now to give you a little background, Moldova used to be part of the Soviet Union. Today, it has a pro-EU parliament and a pro-Russia president. Now, Russia was quick to respond this time, mirroring the Moldovan move, with Moldovan diplomats having to leave Russia actually today.
The meeting, the conference where these globalists all come together and meet in secret, and they have confidentiality agreements to ensure that everybody there is going to keep it under wraps, keep their discussions under wraps. This is going down in Chantilly, Virginia, between June 1st and June 4th, and we will be providing coverage of that. Now, there were some concerning people that are attending this event. It actually says some of the notable U.S. attendees are Trump administration National Security Advisor General H.R. McMaster. I mean, that's a little concerning. Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, tech billionaire Peter Thiel, and even ex-CIA Director David Petraeus. I mean, this is going to be really crazy. And their agendas that they have. I mean, we have the Trump administration progress report, transatlantic relations, transatlantic defense alliance, even why is populism growing? The war on information. They should have just said, we're going to be talking about how we can take down info wars, because that's exactly what it sounds like. They're talking about Russia in the international order.
Elon Musk says that universal basic income, or an economic idea where everyone gets a paycheck from the government to spend how they wish, is one of the only solutions to the rise of robotic automation. Most plans for universal basic income start by suggesting a tax on robots. The goal here is to replace revenue lost from the mass numbers of unemployed and keep it coming in from the bots. Plus, this is still a net gain for businesses. They get money flowing into pockets so people can keep spending, and even conservative estimates suggest that robots will be able to pay for themselves dozens of times over. So companies won't really be losing any money there either.
A universal basic income is something usually championed by socialists and other friends of John DeVore, but recently some tech leaders have also been pushing the idea, which involves the government giving all citizens a certain amount of money to cover the basic things like food and housing. And this week, Tesla chief Elon Musk said a UBI is going to be necessary in the future because automation will lead to extremely high unemployment. Or as he put it, there will be fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better. Musk believes that self-driving vehicles alone will lead to 12 to 15% unemployment within.
In contests between humans and machines, humans keep losing. But at least we're getting something out of our defeats. Google's AlphaGo, the artificial intelligence designed to play the strategy game Go, recently beat the top-ranked player. It also beat a team of 5 world-class Go players by itself. The victory is historic for AI because AlphaGo is programmed to teach itself the game instead of working from a defined set of commands. It's now retired from competitions to focus on other tasks, like finding cures for diseases. IBM's Watson followed a similar path. It defeated the longest winning streak holder in Jeopardy history and then entered the medical field. It's already diagnosed a woman with a rare form of cancer that doctors couldn't identify. There's also an artificial intelligence that plays Texas Hold'em. It outplayed 4 professional poker players by about $1.75 million in chips. Its technology is expected to be harnessed in fields where negotiating with misinformation can be a benefit, like in military strategy or business negotiations. Forget the boarding pass. A selfie is all you'll need to board an airplane in the future. JetBlue will be the first airline to team up with U.S. Customs and Border Protection to test biometric facial recognition technology at its gates. Here's how it will work. Passengers will be photographed prior to boarding. Those photos will be run against the CBP's database of passport, visa, and immigration photos. Once the system confirms the passenger's identity, he or she can board the plane. The trial will start in June with JetBlue flights from Boston to Aruba. For now, passengers will have to opt in to use the technology. They'll also still need a copy of their boarding pass to get through the airport security line. CBP agents have already been using the same technology to verify the identities of passengers entering the U.S. The agency deletes the passengers' pictures after the verification process, unless it, quote, determines that further administrative or enforcement actions are necessary. British Airways is already using this kind of facial recognition technology for boarding in London's Heathrow Airport.
Foreign ministers of more than 20 member countries of the Organization of American States are meeting today in Washington, D.C. to discuss the crisis in Venezuela. Among the goals of the meeting is to establish a contact group to help bring back the Venezuelan government and opposition to the negotiating table. Nicolas Maduro's government has declined participation in the meeting and denounced the OAS's action as an effort to intervene in the sovereignty of the South American nation. All this as protesters remain in the streets of Caracas and other cities of the country now for 60 days. As clashes and violence continues, the death toll has reached more than 60 victims on both sides of the political divide.
Goldman Sachs is being heavily criticized for giving Venezuela's government close to $1 billion. The investment bank used the money to buy bonds in Venezuela's state-owned oil and gas company. It may have been a good deal on Goldman's part. It got $3 billion worth of bonds for about a third of the price. But the transaction itself is controversial. Many allege the bank is propping up a dictator. A large majority of the country opposes President Nicolas Maduro. He's been accused of trying to grab power from other branches of government. And in recent months, forces loyal to him have killed several protesters. One of the country's main opposition leaders said Goldman's deal will strengthen the brutal repression unleashed against the hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans peacefully protesting. On the other hand, Venezuela desperately needs cash. The socialist government controls the economy, and the country's lack of money has had serious effects on its people. For example, the government controls wheat imports to make bread. Because funds are so low, it's only been importing a quarter of the wheat the country needs. Venezuela's food shortage has been so bad, the average citizen has lost 19 pounds in the past year. Maduro's government has denied a humanitarian crisis exists.
It's crazy actually. It's really crazy in Iraq. Because since the first day I stepped my feet in Iraq, every day there was a bombing. As soon as I reached in Iraq, I called my mom. I said, Mom, I'm in Iraq. She said, oh, what? I said, I'm in Iraq. No, you're kidding. I said, no, Mom, I'm not kidding.
We were briefed on Peruvian and Colombian guards. At the time was about $1,000 to $1,200. And then 6 months, a year ago, it became Ugandan guards at about $800 a month. Now, on this most recent trip, the company that is winning all the awards said, well, we've got a good strategy. We're using Sierra Leoneans. And so what are we paying for this? About $250 a month.
If you're looking for young men to perform military jobs, the chances are quite good that they have also been child soldiers.
You need to shoot your parent. That can show you that you have the mind to shoot another person. If not that, every day you remember, you will think that I've killed my father, I've killed my mother. Who next again I cannot kill?
When the blood was in Iraq, that time I remember. So this is the war. And this is what happened in Sierra Leone. This is not good, but because of money.
British